TVET governance, new considerations, concepts, and models. This presentation will introduce governance, its importance, its main elements, as well as new orientations influencing good governance. The contents will cover governance, stakeholders, and TVET with some models for governance models and new considerations. When it comes to defining governance, numerous definitions can be put forward. Wikipedia simply defines governance as being the process of making and enforcing decisions within an organization. It's a process of interactions through the laws, social norms, power, and others. A more general definition can be found in Cambridge Dictionary, defining governance as being the way that organizations or countries are managed at the highest level and the systems for doing so. UNESCO sees governance as a combination of structures and processes that are designed to ensure accountability, transparency, responsiveness, rule of law, stability, equity, and inclusiveness, empowerment, and broad-based participation. Governance and management are interconnected. Nevertheless, it's the role of governance to set norms, strategic vision, and directions, and to formulate high-level goals and policies, while management runs the organization and implements the decisions. Governing authorities oversee management and organizational performance to ensure that it is working to the best interest of the public. Yet management can make operational decisions and policies. It has always to be responsive to requests for additional information and to keep the governance bodies informed and educated. In sum, governance is about directing and overseeing the management to ensure that the organization is achieving the desired outcomes. The fundamental purpose of good governance is to take into consideration the best interests of all stakeholders. When it comes to TVET, three levels of stakeholders can be considered. At the macro level, ministries and statutory bodies are in fact responsible for governance as defined previously. They set objectives, mission, and strategies, and they oversee managerial decisions and performance. In fact, macro-level stakeholders can be any number of bodies with a mandate for collective action in TVET. At the meso level, we can find business organizations, trade unions, NGOs, who can play a role of advocacy by providing recommendations and support. At the micro level, stakeholders such as TVET institutions tend to be most directly responsible for effective implementation. Their success depends on a commitment from macro stakeholders to providing a suitable environment. In other words, commitment from macro stakeholders to supporting the effective implementation of actions, taking into consideration new qualifications and competencies will ensure their relevance and durability in the longer term. In sum, all stakeholders of different levels need to contribute to continuously maintain a responsive and agile TVET system to keep it relevant for its economy and to make people capable and resilient to tackle current and future challenges in their working and private lives. Good governance is participatory, it is consensus-oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective, efficient, equitable, and law-abiding, and demonstrates a strategic vision. First of all, good governance is at its heart participatory. This means that it encourages participation from members across a variety of backgrounds and encompassing varying areas of expertise. Good governance also implies that boards must be consensus-oriented. A passionate, participatory, informed debate can lead to the most insightful solutions as members work together to find common ground among various points of view. Accountability is also a key factor. Accountability to anyone affected by the governing board's decisions. This includes all stakeholders. Good governance also means that the organization has to be transparent about its processes and that it ensures its records are available to stakeholders like contracts, policies, and other documents. Responsiveness means that the organization needs to remain on their toes, handling matters that may arise promptly and effectively to avoid crisis. Board directors should aim to be the model of effective practice and efficiency. Equity and inclusiveness are inherently tied to participation. They are key component of a healthy board. Each board member should feel capable of sharing their experiences and opinions and philosophy. And here we should not forget the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Rule of law means that boards should be sure to conduct themselves in an ethical and equitable manner. We should always be sure to act honestly and to follow all applicable laws to avoid any future headaches. Strategic vision is perhaps the most motivating of all aspects of good governance. To help realize this vision, we need to plan strategically, to define mission and values, and to foster a conducive environment that help achieve goals. In order to tackle the subject of governance in TVET, it's important to start by understanding the specific aspect and characteristics of TVET. TVET is traditionally seen as a subsector of academic education, but in reality it is different. One main difference is that standards and needs are set by employers. It is aimed at employment rather than promotion to a next grade level like in academic education. TVET is also a diverse sector. It comprises formal, non-formal, and informal learning. It takes place across a wide range of settings, including schools, public and private vocational centers, institutes, workplaces, etc. Monitoring and evaluating TVET performance and identifying the possibilities for improving its quality and coverage require an understanding of the nature of TVET, its functions, goals, and its key characteristics. TVET plays a key role in any society when it comes to providing qualified labor for the economy and transitioning young people from learning to earning. TVET is arguably the education sector closest to the labor market. According to UNESCO, the aim of TVET is to empower individuals and promote employment, to promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth, social equity, and environmental sustainability. Normally, TVET institutions provide training through one or more of these typologies. Institution-based training that can be provided under or outside the formal educational system, work-based training either delivered before the employment or when in service, or even a combination of typologies such as the dual systems. According to UNESCO, in most low and middle income countries, TVET systems remain highly fragmented and delivered by multiple entities, different ministries, NGOs, private sector, all having roles, rights, obligations, accountabilities with regards to ensuring equitable, higher quality, and relevant provision. Coherent governance and regulatory frameworks are then a must. Today, needed skills for an efficient preparation for future employment are wider in nature and in scope. Job-specific skills are still very important, though competencies and qualifications are in perpetual change, and TVET need to cope with such change. But also other skills are very important, are vital. Students must be given foundation skills that include core subjects such as math, science, language, and others. Transversal skills, mainly entrepreneurial skills, life skills, citizenship, human rights, and others. But last, but certainly before we get to the digital skills, we have the sustainability and green orientation that are real trends in today's world, and they need to be taken into consideration. And last, but certainly not least, digital skills that are key to survival under new technologies and information revolution. The digital transformation of the world of work has many dimensions, each with their own implications for TVET governance. Progress made in robotics, as well as the increasing spread of the Internet of Things, can no more be neglected. For example, the automation of process should be considered. Another example, the digital platforms to connect employees with employers. One fundamental challenge is that the speed of technological change is contrasting with governance institutions that are too often too slow to respond. The challenge of TVET governance now lies on one hand in defining training occupations and needs such that they meet the rapidly changing requirements of companies and of the young people wanting to acquire skills. On the other hand, a TVET policy should not take a merely reactive approach, but rather a proactive one by estimating future training needs and be able to ensure by a suitable training policy that all opportunities are seized. This way, governance approaches of a more prospective nature can improve the governance of the entire education system. Besides, the short-term needs should be balanced with the long-term objective of supplying skilled labor to the labor market. Some decentralized forms of governance can also have an advantage over slow centralistic approaches, especially when it comes to responding quickly to changing needs in the dynamic environment. Also, cooperation relationships between public and private sector stakeholders need to be rethought and redefined as fruitful cooperation could emerge. In light of what was discussed, new governance models for TVET should first consider decentralization. Decentralization is becoming increasingly popular among TVET institutes internationally. As a result, many countries are establishing or strengthening governance models for TVET institutions involving local stakeholders and cooperating with business associations in especially in supporting work-based learning. Here's an example from different countries that have taken actions through decentralization and involvement of stakeholders and collaboration with business entities. This is coming from a study provided by UNESCO, conducted on its member states. Other examples even include some countries from the Arab world, such as Bahrain and Palestine, as well as from other parts of the world. Work-based training should be considered as it constitutes an important part of TVET governance. Work-based learning can be done through apprenticeships, traineeships, and internships, and many countries are using these models, such as Costa Rica, Cyprus, Malta, Slovenia, Palestine, Uruguay, and others. Another model of work-based learning is dual system, mainly used in Armenia, Austria, Belgium, Romania, Slovakia, Spain, Tunisia, Philippines, and other countries. A third model of work-based learning is on-the-job training, mainly adopted by countries like Ireland and Japan. The question is now, what is the best governance model for TVET in Lebanon? Answering this question requires an extensive study of the environment with all its components. It's obvious that governance structure is largely dependent on institutional arrangements and the respective roles of key stakeholders. The structure in Lebanon is still rigid and reforms need to be done. Nevertheless, actions are being undertaken. In 2018, the TVET National Strategic Framework was launched with the aim of increasing youth employment and boosting the labor market. Although the situation has been degrading since 2019, nevertheless, school advisory boards are being gradually established in TVET establishments, and they can lead to better governance, more cooperation between public and private sectors, smaller gap between trainings and labor market needs, and better employability. At the end, we can say that the future of TVET governance can be brighter. Only hard work and appropriate planning can lead to success.